All right, we are going to do 2.3a, which is measures of central tendency. It's a really fancy way of trying to say you need to find the middle of your data. So the way that we find the middle of the data is with the mean, the median, or the mode, which are things that you guys have been doing for a long time. So we know that mean is average, so to find the average, you just add them all up and divide by however many you have. Median is your middle number, so what's in the center of your data, and then the mode is the most, the one that happens the most often. Okay, so the measure of central tendency is just a value to represent the typical or the central entry of your data set. So what's most representative of the middle of your data? So there are 3 different ways, because some ways are better than others, especially given your data if you have outliers or you have a number that occurs a ton and then you've got a bunch of them that aren't really around that. Different ones can be pulled in different directions, and so you find all 3 and then you can decide which one is the best based on your actual data set. Okay, the mean is the sum of your data entries divided by the number of entries. This is just your average. You know this. Do not let these funky things stress you out. This is average. Okay? We have talked about how in statistics a lot of it is like just learning the symbols and understanding what they mean. Okay? So one of the things that we need to know is that this little U with a tail on it, that's mu. It's the Greek letter mu, mu. And it means average or mean. Whenever you see this, you know that that's your mean. Okay? And that's going to come up a lot, and we just need to understand that mu is mean. Mu is mean. Okay? This sigma, we've talked about that a little bit. So sigma, that's a capital sigma, means to sum, right? To add up. And so you're going to add up all of your data entries. Your x's are just your data entries. So x's are your data points. So you know how to find average. This is just a fancy way of writing it. So to find the average, you add up all of your data points and then divide by n, which is your population size. Okay. Now, the one below it is your sample mean. This little bar should really be like above the x. That's an x bar. I think that's actually what you say, x bar. It's the exact same thing. You're taking your sum of your data points and you're dividing it by n, but this time our n is lowercase, and that's because this is your sample size. So we talked about knowing everything in your population, having numbers for every single person or thing in your population versus only having a sample of that population. So a capital N means that you know everything. You have every number in your population. A sample, lowercase n, means you have parts of your population. Usually we just talk about mu as average, and we're going to focus on population average or population mean right now. But the formula doesn't change regardless. Add them all up and divide by however many you have. But we do need to understand these symbols because they're going to keep coming up over and over again. This is, the rest of it's super straightforward. Add up, so this is how much air conditioners cost. So add up all of your x's and divide by however many you have. Okay? So if we add up 500, 840, 470, all these numbers, you get 3,590. And there are 7 numbers total, so you just take 3,590 and divide it by 7. We were talking about money, so if you did, you should get 512.86. You can leave it like that, that's fine, because money is going to be rounded to 2 decimal places usually. I put 513 because most of the time, unless you're told, you just want to round to whatever places your numbers were given to you in. So since all of these numbers were given to us as whole numbers, you can just round this to the nearest whole number. If these all had decimal points, then you would want to round to those decimal places. So just general rule of thumb is to round to however the numbers are given to you. All right, the median is the middle of your data, so you put them all in order. So you put them from large or smallest to largest, and you just cross them out end to end until you find one in the middle. Okay, so here are our air conditioner prices in order. So we just cross them out from one end to the other. So you cross out one at the beginning, and then one at the end, back and forth. So I've crossed out 3 at the beginning and 3 at the end, and I have a single one in the middle. So my median price is $470, the middle one. Now, if I took out one of those prices, that one came out nicely because I had an odd number of prices, so I had just a single number in the middle. That's not always going to be the case. So if I took out one of the $480 air conditioners, and these are my numbers, I could go back and forth between these. But I stop because now I have 2 in the middle, and I'm not going to be able to just end up with a single number in the middle. So when that happens, when you have 2 medians, you add them up and divide by 2. You're finding their average. So then that puts my median at 455 because I add the 440 and the 470 and then divide by 2 to find the middle of those. So those are your options with medians. You're either going to have 1 in the middle or you're going to have 2 that you have to average out to get your median. Mode is which one occurs the most. Okay, mode is most. There are times where they all occur the same, so you don't have a mode, that's fine. There are also times where you have 2 numbers that occur the greatest, and that's called bimodal, so you can have 2 modes, okay? Anything more than that is just no mode. So if you have 3 numbers that are all repeated 3 times, and that's the most, you still don't have a mode. It kind of loses its effect at that point. So you can have 1. You can have 2, but you could also have no modes at all. So for the air conditioners, just looking at them really quickly, you can see that 440 is used twice and all the other ones are only used once. So the mode or the most is 440 in this case. Okay. The other thing you have to do on your assignment is to tell me which one is the best. Okay. So our mode is 440. Our mean was 513, and our median, I don't remember. Well, we had 2 of them, but we'll do the one that had the actual numbers in it, 470. Okay, so these are my 3 things. And my question is, which one is best represents the data? So which of these numbers looks like it fits the middle of these numbers best? Okay. Well, 513 is a lot higher than the other 2. So we look at it and figure out why was our mean so high. Well, because this 840 is an outlier that seems to kind of be in the way of things, pulling the mean up higher than it is. 513 is bigger than every number but 1. So that's not going to be a good measure of central tendency. That's not going to be a good place to measure the middle of your data. Okay, so that one's going to be out. Because of the outlier, it pulled my mean too far up, and so that's not a good measure of the middle. So now I'm between 440 and 470. 440 is kind of towards the lower end. It doesn't really take into account the higher numbers, so I'm going to pick the median as my best. Okay, so mean was bad because it got pulled with the outlier. The mode is more too low. The median was best for this data. That's not always going to be true. You just have to look at all 3 things and then find which one you think fits your data best, and you just have to explain that to me on your worksheet. So 2-3A.